Imagine waking up 30,000 years ago in a dark cave, cold and surrounded by danger, only to realize that the racing heartbeat in your chest isn't from fear of a predator, but from the person sleeping next to you.
Long before we had poetry, romance novels, or even the word love itself, our ancient ancestors were already falling victim to the exact same overwhelming emotion that drives us crazy today. But without psychology books or relationship advice, how did they actually make sense of this terrifying, beautiful chaos happening inside their own minds?
They didn't have diamond rings or candlelit dinners to express what they felt. Instead, the clues they left behind in the dirt and on cave walls reveal a story that is far stranger and more intense than anything we see in modern romance. It turns out that for ancient humans, recognizing love wasn't a soft, poetic awakening. It was a brutal matter of evolutionary survival.
When you look at the harsh reality of prehistoric life, standard evolutionary theory says humans should have been completely selfish, looking out only for their own food and safety. Yet archaeologists keep digging up evidence that completely contradicts this selfish nature.
They find ancient graves where two skeletons have been locked in a tight embrace for thousands of years, buried together with precious items that took weeks to make. Why would a primitive hunter, who fought every single day just to stay alive, waste valuable energy and resources on someone else?
The answer lies in a hidden biological trick that happened inside their brains, a chemical shift so powerful that it altered human history forever. Our ancestors first realized they were experiencing something deeper than simple attraction when their basic survival instincts began to flip upside down. A hunter who would normally run away from danger would suddenly find themselves willing to fight a saber-toothed tiger to protect a specific mate. This wasn't just a choice, it was a profound psychological hijacking. They knew they were in love because their own brain was telling them that another person's life was officially more important than their own.
But this raises an even bigger question, because raw survival alone doesn't explain the sheer depth of affection we find in the ancient world. How did they communicate these complex, overwhelming feelings before modern language even existed? They couldn't say those three famous words, so they had to rely on a language made of actions, shared suffering, and physical tokens.
In many ancient tribes, a person knew someone loved them not by what they said, but by what they were willing to give up. Sharing food during a famine was the ultimate declaration of devotion. If a Neanderthal gave away the best piece of meat that they desperately needed to survive the winter, it was the ultimate proof of an unbreakable bond.
Yet, archaeologists recently stumbled upon something that completely shatters our view of primitive humans as simple, unfeeling brutes. They discovered the remains of an ancient human who had been severely disabled from birth, unable to hunt or gather, who had lived to an advanced age.
This means the tribe didn't just tolerate this person. They actively fed them, protected them, and carried them for decades without getting anything practical in return. This wasn't just tribal cooperation, it was deep, unconditional affection. And it proves that ancient humans recognized love through the quiet, exhausting act of lifelong caregiving.
But what about the romantic, passionate love that makes your stomach turn into knots? Did ancient humans feel that exact same spark? Or is romance just a modern invention created by society? For a long time, historians actually believed that romantic love was a relatively new concept, invented just a few centuries ago in Europe.
But modern neuroscience has proved that theory completely wrong by looking directly inside our chemical makeup. When scientists put people who are madly in love into a brain scanner, they see massive spikes in dopamine and oxytocin, flooding the exact same primitive parts of the brain that we share with our ancient ancestors.
30,000 years ago, an early human looking across a campfire felt the exact same dizzying, addictive chemical rush that you feel today when you get a text from your crush. They recognized romance because it felt like a sickness, an obsession they couldn't escape. In fact, ancient people often viewed this intense feeling not as a blessing, but as a dangerous form of madness or magic.
When a tribal member suddenly lost their appetite, couldn't sleep, and became entirely fixated on one person, the tribe didn't see a beautiful romance. They saw someone who had been compromised.
The ancient mind interpreted the physical symptoms of love, the sweaty palms, the racing heart, the stuttering speech, as a literal spiritual possession.
They knew they were in love because they felt like they had completely lost control of their own body. This overwhelming obsession led to some of the most beautiful and heartbreaking artistic expressions in human history, long before the invention of the alphabet. In deep, hidden cave systems around the world, researchers have found ancient handprints stenciled onto stone walls using red ochre.
In several remarkable places, two distinct handprints, one larger and one smaller, are placed side by side, overlapping in a permanent, silent embrace. These aren't just random marks. They are the oldest love letters on Earth, a way for two people to say to the universe that they existed together, bound by something they couldn't quite name.
However, life back then wasn't just about cave paintings and shared meals, and a shocking new discovery shows that ancient love had a much darker, more competitive side. In a world with zero laws and constant danger, protecting a mate required an intense level of jealousy and territorial behavior. Ancient humans quickly realized that love came with a painful shadow called heartbreak and betrayal.
If a partner showed attention to someone else, it triggered a wave of aggression that could tear an entire tribe apart. This means our ancestors often recognized the true depth of their love only when it was threatened with loss. This constant threat of danger and death actually made their bonds significantly tighter than most relationships today. Imagine living in a world where a simple infection or a minor hunting accident could take your partner away forever at any moment. Because life was so incredibly fragile, ancient humans didn't take love for granted. They leaned into it heavily, using it as a psychological anchor against the terrifying unknown of the natural world. Strangely enough, this extreme fragility of life led to the creation of the very first love rituals. As tribes began to settle down and develop early forms of culture, they started looking for ways to make these invisible emotional bonds permanent. They began crafting the first pieces of romantic jewelry, using animal teeth, polished shells, and rare stones. Giving someone a necklace made from the teeth of a dangerous predator you hunted yourself wasn't just a gift. It was a physical manifestation of your bravery, your time, and your willingness to bleed for them. When an ancient partner accepted that gift and wore it every day, everyone in the tribe knew exactly what it meant.
But as human society evolved, the way people recognized love underwent a massive, unexpected transformation that almost ruined romance entirely. With the birth of early agriculture and the concept of personal property, relationships suddenly became political.
Instead of choosing a mate based on that deep chemical campfire spark, tribal leaders and early kings began arranging marriages to secure land, power, and alliances. For a huge portion of human history, the intense, passionate love our ancestors felt in the caves was suddenly viewed as a disruptive, dangerous force that threatened social order.
Yet, despite every attempt by ancient governments and strict societal rules to control it, romantic love simply refused to die. People continued to risk everything, their status, their families, and even their lives, just to be with the person their brain had chosen for them.
Ancient mythology from Greece, Mesopotamia, and Egypt is absolutely filled with tragic stories of lovers defying the gods and empires just to be together. These stories weren't just fantasies. They were a reflection of the real, unstoppable rebellion happening in the hearts of everyday people. So how did ancient humans ultimately know they were in love?
They knew it because love was the only thing powerful enough to break all the rules of nature and society. They knew it when they looked at another person and decided that survival alone wasn't enough anymore, and that life only made sense if it was shared.
It is the exact same ancient, undeniable force that still connects us today, proving that while our world has changed completely, the human heart remains exactly the same.